This video is intended to be a review of HTML and JavaScript. I'm going to put them together, and this is a very basic beginning review. It assumes you've already had some HTML and maybe some JavaScript in your past, but you want some refresher, and this is a good place to get started from the beginning. So what we're looking at here is a very basic beginning of any HTML page, and I'm just going to review what they happen to mean real quick. Remember that this line 1 doc type is telling the browser what version of HTML we are currently utilizing. HTML5 is the most recent version. And by putting this doc type with the exclamation point HTML, that says this is HTML5 that's about to follow. Line 2 is simply letting the browser know what our spoken language of choice is, and we're writing this in the English spoken language. All of our documents will begin with a head tag and a body tag. The head tag is designed for information that the browser needs. It's not information that the browser needs to display to our users. It's simply just information that the browser needs to know in order to properly render our page. And in this example, some of the things it needs to know is the character set, which simply means it gives it a map or an understanding of how it's going to translate our typed text, like the letter A or hello world. How does the browser translate that into zeros and ones so that the compiler, or so that your computer will understand what it's talking about? Line 5 has to do with responsive design, which is not what we're doing in this particular example, so technically this could be erased, but my automatic syntax maker made that for me, so I'll leave it off for simplicity. Title is the information that the browser is going to put into the tab of the browser. So if we put in my page, for example, that's what's showing up in the tab here. So head information is very important, as is the body. Inside the body is the information that we want to display. That's where we create our actual page and view to our users. So what we're going to do, and of course you have to always have an opening HTML and a closing HTML tag, which goes in these spots. So this is any basic skeleton for a web page. So what we're going to do in this example is we're going to create, first of all, a header tag. And the reason I'm doing a header tag is, first of all, please recognize that this is not a head tag, that these are in fact very different tags. By itself, a header tag doesn't do anything, but what it is doing is partitioning out my code. In other words, anything, if I'm reading this as a programmer and I look at the words headers, I would have intuitively thought this is the type of heading information. So this would appear at the top of my my title and maybe a date or something like that on a essay. But header information, therefore, is simply a way to organize our code for our programmer to understand. It also gives a screen reader information to give to whoever the screen reader is reading to, that the information in here is heading type information. And so something that would probably go in a heading or a header is maybe a title, like the title of my web page, for example, would definitely go in a header. So recognize that a header then is what we call a semantic tag, and I'll put that into, this is a semantic tag, we call it. And what that means is that it's a tag that, or an element or a tag that we're utilizing, that by reading it, we can figure out what is contained inside of it. But by itself, it's not doing anything. Unlike an H1 tag, which does do something. In other words, if our browser reads an H1 tag, it knows that anything that goes in between the opening and closing tag, the browser, I'm going to make it larger, and I'm also going to make it bold. So a H1 tag, the browser will physically do something with its contents. The header is simply an organizational tool, and we can also use that to grab a hold of it for when we're writing our CSS styles. All right, another semantic tag that we might use is called a section. And again, by itself, the word section is simply a semantic tag. It's not doing anything to my page per se, except sectioning off or partitioning off pieces of information. And you can think of a section tag similar to like if you look at a newspaper, there might be a section that has a headline, and then there might be a subheadline, and there might be an author, and there might be some article information. So a section is exactly that. It is again a semantic tag that enables me to section off different pieces of my code for clarity, not only to the programmer, but to a screen reader. And then again, we'll have a good hook on it for our CSS. All right, so let's think about, I'm going to put in a H3 tag, and I'm going to put something like my name is, and I'm going to put Kirsten. So again, an H3 is something that the browser understands to do something with. It says, oh, I know what an H3 tag is. I'm going to make this font a little bit smaller than the H1 tag, and I'm also going to bold it. Also in my section tag, I think I'll put a paragraph. So a paragraph is, I'm going to put something, I was born in Hawaii, where I taught scuba, and now I teach web dev at a community college. Okay, and I'm going to save that. I'm in Visual Studio Code. I'm going to choose View and toggle Word Wrap just so I can see all of that on one line. All right, so again, the browser sees a P tag and it knows what to do. It says, well, I have to make a line break from whatever was above me, which it did. There's a line break that was automatically inserted between the H3 and the paragraph tag. And then it doesn't bold or make anything bigger. It uses the default, which is usually about 16 pixels for the font. So now I have a section. Again, by itself, the section tag isn't doing anything except organizing my code into, in this section, I have an H3 and a P tag, and that looks like that's types of information that can be grouped together that would constitute a section. All right, so good introduction to HTML, or not introduction, but a good refresher is the word I'm looking for. And so now I'm going to do a little bit of JavaScript. And so I'm going to type the word script, S-C-R-I-P-T. I'm going to try and spell it correctly. Script. And in between my script tags, I'm telling the browser I'm going to provide you with some JavaScript that I need you to interpret, which is going to be interpreted a little bit different than the HTML tags, obviously. So I'm letting the browser know what's inside of these tags is some JavaScript. All right, so what I'm going to do in this JavaScript is I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it visitor name, and this var, although not necessary, is something that we're going to just assume for the series of my videos is necessary. It, for the moment, means I am going to create a variable. I'm going to create a bucket, a storage location that can change throughout the course of my program. So, but no matter what the person's name is, whether they're Fred or Bob or Jack or Jimmy, it doesn't matter. Whatever name they are is going to be placed into this piece, this word that I can use. I can always use that consistent word, which will then point to the changing words, the changing names. So it's a bucket, it's a storage location of names. So no matter what, if the name changes, I don't have to know Bob changed to Frank, changed to Junior. All I can do is refer to visitor name, and whatever is in that bucket, whatever is in that place of location in the store in memory, is what's going to actually be spit out. In other words, if I put something like visitor name equals Kirsten, and I have to put that in quotations because I have to say it's what's called a string. It's not a number, it's characters, so it's a string. Visitor name equals Kirsten, and then I did a document write visitor name. So I'm not writing Kirsten, I'm writing whatever is inside that storage location on my document. So if I refresh my page, I should see that it is didn't write. So let me figure out why. Well, great. Why didn't it write? This is a great example on accident. So nothing wrote. Don't know why. So I'm going to right click on my browser page and I'm going to say inspect element. And I'm going to choose this tab that says console. And console is going to let me know that I made a mistake in my JavaScript. And it says visitor name is not defined. In other words, I'm trying to print out something called visitor, but it doesn't know what visitor is because I didn't spell it right here. So I spelled visitor name here. I spelled visitor name here. So when I asked it to print out the contents of that place in memory, it said, dude, I don't even know what you're talking about. So I meant to do visitor, so I'm going to control copy and paste it here. And now I'm going to reload my page, and now it's correctly writing that string from the location in memory. And then, of course, if I change the name, if I change visitor, which I probably should just paste since apparently I can't type it, and then I change the name to Bob, and then printed out the new name, you can see that the benefits of creating variables is that if the string or if the name changes, I only have to refer to that changing data via the variable name, which in this case is visitor name. So now you can see that Bob did in fact get written out after I changed the value or changed what was in that bucket. All right, that's fantastic news. So what I'm going to do is, for fun, I'm going to create a prompt box. And what a prompt box does, let me just do it so you can see. I'm going to paste in that variable name. And in that variable name, instead of filling something in hard-coded, I'm going to get the value from the user. And I can do that with the JavaScript prompt box. Prompt, P-R-O-M-P, okay. And the prompt wants 2 pieces of data, and that's what's prompting us here. This is a prompt box or an informational box. And it says that I need to put in a message, which is a string. Well, we just saw what a string is. And then I can also put in what I want the default to be, the default value to be, which is also a string. In other words, prompt. So here's what I'm going to ask the user. Enter your name, and then comma, and then I'm going to put in a string or some characters that represent a sentence for us. And then I'm going to put a prompt, your name here. And then if I save that, and I'm going to look and see what on earth that is all about. Let's refresh this page. So when we refresh the page, here you can see exactly what happened. So by using this string, enter your name, that's what got put up here in the top portion of this. And then this is sort of an informational, here's what I want you to place here. And so what will happen is, if I put in something, whatever's in this box, and the user clicks on OK, that is what's going to be put, that string is what's going to be put into my variable visitor name. So in our example earlier, we had the word visitor, then we changed it to Bob. And so I'm going to click on OK. And I didn't actually document write anything, so let's do that now. Document, I want to make sure my indenting is correct. That's good programming practice. Document, and then spelling is also apparently a thing. So many rules. Document write, you entered, and then I'm going to do a plus sign to concatenate, to join together my string plus whatever the user entered. And then we should now see if I save that, cancel out of the old one, and refresh my page. Enter your name. So it used to be Kirsten, but now we're going to put in Bob. And then when I click on OK, Bob is what's going to be put into visitor name, into that variable, and then that's what's going to print out. You entered Bob. So remember that the computer is very literal. It does exactly what I tell it to do. It doesn't make any assumptions. It didn't assume that there should be a space between entered and Bob, and I in fact did not put a space here between the 2 pieces of information that I concatenated. So if I put a space there, then in fact I should get a space. Let's put somebody else in here. I'm going to put Indy and then put OK, and now you entered Indy. Okay, great. So we're getting a taste of variable names. All right, so let's try something else. I'm going to do one more variable name. Okay, so I'm going to put it up here I'm going to put visitor color. So again, these are just user. I just created these. Okay, I get it. You're doing a thing. All right, this is a live browser, so every time I save, it's going to try and do something. All right, so I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to call it visitor color because I'm going to get the user's color. Remember again that I have the word var to indicate that I'm starting, I'm creating, I'm initializing, I am declaring is actually what that is, declaring a variable that I'm going to use. Usually by convention, we declare all of our variables at the beginning of our code, so they're all sort of placed up at the top of our code. I'm putting a little space here just to make it a little bit cleaner. It's not necessary, but it's a little bit clearer, similar to us creating a division in our section. We're kind of organizing our section in such a way that it's more readable to our programmers. This is also making it a little bit clearer, and you'll even see at times programmers will do something like, I'm going to put a comment and say something like declare the variables. So it's just a little comment about what code follows, and then maybe here I will get user info. So something along those lines. I don't like the way that that's not indented. There we go. So, and then the space, just for the JavaScript doesn't care about these spaces, but as the user reading it, that makes it a little bit clearer to differentiate the difference between these statements and these statements. All right, and so maybe even if I wanted to be even more clear, what I could do here is display the user info, something along those lines. Okay, a little bit cleaner, easier to read. All right, so the last piece of this is I'm going to also utilize this variable and a prompt to ask the user what their favorite color is. Visitor, and again, typing is not my friend here, so just to make life a little easier, I'm going to do visitor color. I'm going to copy this code, and I'm going to ask for your favorite color instead. And then we'll do something like your color here. Okay. And then for the moment, I'm going to just display that information back to the user just so I know that it's all working. I want to make sure that before I do anything fancy with color, that I received it properly into this variable and that I'm able to display that data back. So I know that my variable is set up correctly and it is being able to not only get the new data, but print it back out to the user. So I'm going to cancel and start again. So my name goes here. Okay, that makes sense. So I'm going to click on OK, in which time that value is put into visitor name. And then the next line is rendered, which is to get the visitor color. Enter your favorite color here. I'm going to say purple and then click on OK. So purple is then put into visitor color, and exactly the way I put it into the script here, document write, you entered Kirsten, no space, no new line, you entered purple, exactly the way I put it in here. And so the last piece of this particular video is I think I'll do something kind of fun, and this might be a foreshadowing. I'm not going to do a whole lot of detail on this, but I'll give a general idea. I'm going to do body style dot background. I did that wrong. Background color equals, and we'll put in what the user used, visitor color. So what I'm trying to do here is by utilizing this syntax, and what I'm doing with this syntax is I'm addressing the document, which is this overall HTML page. And within the HTML page, there is a body. So just like you're drilling down in a path in your C drive, you know, like C colon dot slash users slash desktop, for example, I'm doing the same thing. So document, and I'm drilling down to the body tag. And then, so what I'm doing is, in essence, if I were to do a CSS style sheet, and I know this wasn't really intended to be a style refresher, but here it is anyway. So if I did something like body background color purple, for example, that's what I'm doing with this sentence. I'm just doing it in JavaScript rather than CSS. So the only difference in JavaScript is I'm saying go to the body. We're going to apply a style, a CSS style, and the style I want to use is the background color. Background colors or CSS styles is exactly the same in CSS as they are in JavaScript. The only difference in JavaScript, if I'm using it, in this case, background was a dash color. If there's something with a dash color, I replace the dash with a capital C. So background dash color becomes background color. So all we're doing here is the same thing we're doing here. I'm going to comment this out so it's not done initially. And so my point here is we're going to get the color from the user, and as long as they put in a valid simple color in English like purple or green, and not something fancy like ghostly green or something like that, something that the browser will recognize, then the background should change to that color. Let's just try it and see. And cancel out of this, save, so I have a clean copy. My name is, so that, okay, I'm got to put something in there, Kirsten. Okay, and then my favorite color, I'll try purple. May have to spell it correctly. Purple, and now my background should in fact change purple. So that's kind of a fun thing to do with JavaScript, and that's the whole point of JavaScript, is it interacts with the user, and we get to do things like change the background color. So this has been a video to help you refresh your skills with the basic HTML, with some basic HTML, organizing your HTML, little intro to JavaScript. And in this intro, we're reviewing what on earth variables are and how we can use them, and then a little extra of utilizing our JavaScript to change our actual HTML. And in fact, just one other little snippet before I close. Let's just look back at inspect element now. And I think that if we even went to the body tag, you can see that the JavaScript actually wrote that style for us that we had up here. In other words, let's just refresh. So if we refresh and we look at our inspector, which isn't coming up yet because of because it's waiting on our prompt box here, but if we could see our inspector right now, this style is not there because it's been commented out. In fact, we can just erase it. Let's just erase it so we can see that it is in fact what you're telling me it is. So I'm going to erase style altogether, refresh the page, put in my name. So at the moment, there is no styling to my page. And then I'm going to put a color here. I'll do a different one just to prove my point, and hit green. And now you can see that that background color was actually written as if we had put the style up here. So kind of cool. All right, welcome back to your review.